For 1,000 years no one dared approach, until a human touched the dragon's chains. Part 1. The chains that bind the sky. The warning beacons had been screaming for 1,000 years. They pulsed in 17 different languages, each message saying the same thing. Stay away, turn back, death waits here. Ships that flew too close found their engines dying. Crews that ignored the warnings never returned. The crater on 7 was the most forbidden place in the known galaxy, and every species knew why. A dragon slept there, or perhaps it did not sleep, perhaps it only waited. Commander stood on the bridge of her ship, the Defiant Curiosity, and stared at the planet below was gray and dead, covered in ash and ancient stone, but the crater at its heart glowed with a sickly purple light. Even from orbit she could feel something pressing against her mind. It was not quite fear. It was more like sadness, deep and old and endless. Commander, I must strongly advise against this course of action. Turned to look at her first officer. Was a tall being with 4 arms and skin like polished bronze. He was brave. She had seen him fight pirates without flinching. But now his hands were shaking and his large eyes were wet with terror. The distress signal has been repeating for 847 years, said calmly. Someone down there needs help. Someone down there is dead, replied. Everyone who goes down there dies. This is known. This is fact. The dragon kills all who approach. Looked around her bridge. Her crew was small but loyal. Dr. Vex, the scientist with her tentacles wrapped tight around her console. Pilot, the young whose feathers had turned white with fear. Chief engineer, an old who had seen 100 worlds but had never looked so pale. They were all terrified, and she understood why. The dragon had many names. The called it the end of stars. The named it the silence that swallows. The simply called it the forbidden one and refused to say more. Every species in the galactic conquered had stories about the creature in the crater. Stories of fire and death. Stories of entire fleets reduced to ash. Stories of gods that fell before its fury. For 1,000 years no one had dared approach. Not warriors, not priests, not scientists, not kings. The dragon was chained, bound by ancient powers, and everyone agreed it was better to leave it that way, to let it rot in its prison until the stars themselves grew cold. But was human, and humans were strange. Pull up the sensor readings again, she ordered. Dr. Vex hesitated, then obeyed, the filled with data. The dragon was massive, nearly 3 kilometers long. Its scales were black as void, and its wings were folded against a body that could crush mountains. The chains that held it were not made of metal. They were made of something else, something that glowed with the same purple light as the crater. The sensors could not identify the material. But that was not what caught attention. There, she said, pointing, the heartbeat. The data showed it clearly. A heartbeat, slow and unsteady. Not the rhythm of a predator waiting to strike, the rhythm of something in pain, something suffering. It could be a trick, said. The old records say the dragon can enter minds. It could be making you see what it wants you to see. Maybe, admitted. But look at the pattern. That is not the heartbeat of a hunter. That is the heartbeat of a prisoner who has given up hope. The bridge was silent. No one knew what to say. Thought about her grandmother. The old woman had survived a war, a plague, and 3 famines. She had lived to be 112 years old, and she had taught many things. One lesson stood above all others. The most dangerous prisons are built from fear, and the strongest chains are the ones we refuse to question. I am going down there, said. Commander, please, stepped forward, his 4 hands pressed together in a gesture of pleading. My people have prophecies about this creature, ancient texts that speak of its release. If the chains break, the dragon will burn the galaxy. Billions will die, trillions. Everything we know will end. Your prophecies say it will destroy everything. Yes. Have your prophecies ever asked why it was chained in the first place? Opened his mouth, then closed it. His bronze skin seemed to darken with confusion. I have read the records, continued. Every record from every species that tried to approach the crater. The warriors came to kill it. The priests came to worship it. The scientists came to study it. But nobody ever came just to talk to it. Nobody ever came just to ask if it was okay. Because it is a monster, Dr. Vex said quietly. Maybe, said, or maybe it is a prisoner, and maybe the real monsters are the ones who chained it and walked away. She turned and walked toward the shuttle bay. Behind her, she heard her crew arguing. She heard calling for her to stop. She heard Dr. Vex calculating the odds of survival, which were very close to zero. But she also heard something else, a whisper at the edge of her mind, a voice so old and tired that it barely had the strength to speak. Help me, please, someone help me. The distress signal was not a recording. It was not a trick. It was a prayer sent out into the darkness for 847 years, waiting for someone brave enough or foolish enough to answer. Smiled as she climbed into her shuttle. Do not worry, she said to no one in particular. Humans are very good at being foolish. The shuttle dropped through the atmosphere. The warning beacons screamed louder. The purple light grew brighter. And far below, in the crater that had been silent for 1,000 years, something ancient felt her approach. For the first time in centuries, the dragon opened its eyes. For 1,000 years no one dared approach, until a human touched the dragon's chains. Part 2, The Crater of Screams. The shuttle touched down at the edge of the crater, sat in the pilot's seat for a long moment, looking out through the viewport at what waited beyond. The ground was covered in crystals. They grew everywhere, sharp and beautiful and wrong. Purple light pulsed through them like blood through veins. Knew from the sensor readings that these crystals were not ordinary stone. They were crystallized fear. The terror of 1,000 years had become solid, had taken form, had grown like a forest of nightmares around the dragon's prison. She opened the shuttle door and stepped outside. The fear hit her immediately. It was not like normal fear. It did not make her want to run or hide. Instead, it filled her with a deep and terrible sadness. She felt like crying. She felt like the universe was empty and cold and cruel. She felt like hope was a lie that children told themselves before they learned the truth. But she kept walking. Behind her, the shuttle's communication system crackled. His voice came through, broken by static. Commander, your life signs are unstable. The fear crystals are affecting your brain chemistry. Please return to the shuttle. I am fine, said. Her voice was steady, even if her hands were not. Commander, the crystals emit a frequency that triggers primal terror in most galactic species. Our people cannot even look at the images without screaming. How are you still standing? Thought about the question. She did not have a good answer. Humans were not the bravest species in the galaxy. They were not the strongest or the oldest, but they had something that other species did not quite understand. They had a strange relationship with fear. Humans did not ignore fear. They did not pretend it did not exist, but they also did not let it control them. They felt the fear, they acknowledged it, and then they walked forward anyway. It was not courage exactly. It was something more stubborn than that. I will be fine, she said again. Stay with the ship. If I am not back in 6 hours, leave without me. Commander, I cannot do that. That is an order. The communication cut out. Did not know if it was the crystals interfering or if had ended the call himself. Either way, she was alone now. She walked deeper into the crater. The graveyard started about 100 meters in. Ships lay scattered across the crystal field like dead insects. Some were small, barely larger than her shuttle. Others were massive warships with cannons that could crack moons. All of them were broken. All of them were empty. Stopped at the first wreck and looked inside. The hull was made of metal she did not recognize. The markings on the side were in a language that had been dead for 5,000 years. Inside, she found bones. They were not human bones, but they were still bones. Someone had died here, alone and afraid, very long ago. She moved on. The next ship was newer, only a few centuries old. It bore the symbol of the Empire, a civilization that had ruled a third of the galaxy before it fell to civil war. The records said they had sent their greatest warriors to kill the dragon. They had come with weapons that could burn stars and armor that could survive the vacuum of space. They had failed. Their ship was torn in half and their bones were scattered like seeds. Kept walking. She passed monuments and prayer flags. She passed the remains of robotic armies and the husks of living ships. She found a temple that had been built in the crater itself, its stones carved with prayers to gods she had never heard of. The monks who built it had believed they could worship the dragon, could earn its favor, could become its servants. Their skeletons still knelt before the altar, frozen in eternal prayer. Everyone who came here had wanted something: power, glory, knowledge, salvation. They had looked at the dragon and seen a tool or a threat or a god. They had never seen a person. Stopped at a small camp near the center of the crater. It was different from the other ruins. There were no weapons here, no war machines, no prayer books. Just a tent, a fire pit, and a single skeleton sitting in a chair. She knelt down and examined the remains. The skeleton was small and delicate, with a skull that was almost human but not quite. There was a data pad in its lap, picked it up and turned it on. The screen flickered to life. A face appeared, female and kind, with large eyes the color of autumn leaves. "Recording number 412, the woman said. "I have been here for 2 years now. The dragon will not speak to me. It will not even look at me. But I will not leave. I believe it is lonely. I believe it is in pain. I believe that if I am patient, if I am kind, it will eventually trust me." Felt tears forming in her eyes. Recording number 413. "Today the dragon spoke to me. It asked why I was here. I said I was here because I heard it crying. It did not believe me. It said no one cries for monsters. I said that perhaps it was not a monster. It did not reply, but I think I saw something in its eyes, something like hope." The recording skipped ahead. Recording number 801. "I am dying. The radiation from the crystals has destroyed my body. I do not have much time left, but I want the dragon to know that I do not regret coming here. I want it to know that even if I failed, someone tried, someone cared." The final recording was short. "My name is of the Sunward people. I came here alone and I will die here alone. But I hope that someday someone else will come, someone braver than me, someone stronger, someone who can do what I could not. Please, do not let this creature suffer forever. It has been in chains long enough." The recording ended. Stood up slowly. She looked toward the center of the crater where the dragon waited. She could see it now, a mountain of darkness against the purple sky. She could see its chains, burning with cold fire. She could feel its eyes on her, ancient and tired and full of a pain that had lasted longer than most civilizations. She pulled out her thermos of tea. It was still warm. Then she walked toward the dragon. A voice filled her mind, vast and deep and heavy with exhaustion. "Another fool, another weapon. Leave me to my chains, small thing, before I am forced to end you." Sat down in the ash, crossed her legs, and poured herself a cup of tea. "I did not bring any weapons," she said aloud. "I heard someone crying for help. That was you, was it not?" The dragon did not answer, but it did not kill her either. Took a sip of her tea and waited. For 1,000 years no one dared approach, until a human touched the dragon's chains. Part 3. The Weight of Eternity. The silence stretched on for a very long time. Sat in the ash and drank her tea. The dragon watched her with one enormous eye, an eye larger than her entire shuttle, an eye that had seen galaxies born and die. The purple light of the chains pulsed slowly, casting strange shadows across the crater floor. Finally the dragon spoke again. Its voice was not sound. It was thought, pressed directly into her mind like a seal into wax. "You are strange, little creature. You should be running. You should be screaming. Why do you sit there drinking that foul-smelling liquid? It is called tea, said. It helps me think. Would you like some? The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been pain. It was hard to tell. I have not tasted anything in 11,000 years. The chains do not allow it. They do not allow anything except suffering. Looked at the chains more closely now. They wrapped around the dragon's body like vines around a tree. They covered its wings, its legs, its tail, its neck. They even covered part of its face, digging into scales that were harder than diamond. Where they touched, the scales had turned gray and dead. Who put these chains on you? Asked. The architects, the first ones, the builders of the early galaxy. They are all dust now, but their work remains. Why did they chain you? The dragon's eye narrowed. It was not angry, it was something else, something like surprise. No one has ever asked me that before. Really? Really? The warriors who came wanted to kill me because their prophecies said I was dangerous. The priests who came wanted to worship me because their books said I was a god. The scientists who came wanted to study me because their theories said I was interesting. But none of them ever asked why I was here in the first place. Poured herself more tea. Her hands had stopped shaking. The fear was still there, pressing against her mind, but it felt smaller now, less important. So tell me, she said, why are you here? The dragon was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer, almost gentle. I was a guardian once. Long before your species learned to walk upright, long before most of the stars you see were born, I protected young worlds. I watched over growing civilizations. I kept the darkness at bay. What darkness? There are things in the spaces between galaxies, hungry things, empty things. They drift through the void looking for light to consume. The architects created my kind to fight them. We were guardians, protectors, shields against the night. Tried to imagine it. Dragons, plural, flying through the empty spaces between stars, fighting creatures of pure darkness. It sounded like a fairy tale, but the being in front of her was very real. What happened to the others? She asked. They fell. One by one, over millions of years, they fell. Some were killed by the things they fought. Some were killed by the civilizations they protected, who grew to fear them. Some simply gave up and flew into the heart of stars, ending themselves. I am the last. And the architects chained you because you were the last. No, the dragon's voice grew bitter. They chained me because of what I might become. They had prophecies, you see, calculations. They could see the future, or thought they could, and they saw a possibility, a chance. A small but real chance that one day, driven mad by loneliness, I might become the very thing I was created to fight. Felt something cold settle in her chest. They chained you for something you might do, not something you did. Yes. For 11,000 years. Yes. That is not justice. The dragon's eye widened. For a moment, something flickered there, something that looked almost like tears. No, it is not. But it is the way of civilizations. They fear what they cannot control. They destroy what they cannot understand. The architects looked at me and saw a weapon that might one day turn against them. So they removed me from the universe, wrapped me in chains made from the screams of dying stars, and left me here to rot. Stood up. Her legs were stiff from sitting, but she walked toward the dragon anyway. She stopped just a few meters from its face, close enough to see every scar, every wound, every mark left by 11,000 years of imprisonment. In all that time, she said, you never tried to escape. I tried. For the first 1,000 years, I fought the chains with everything I had. I burned myself against them. I screamed until my voice gave out. I begged the architects to release me, then cursed them, then begged again. But the chains only grew stronger. They feed on resistance. They grow when you fight. And after the first 1,000 years, I gave up. I stopped fighting. I stopped hopping. I sent out my cry for help, not because I believed anyone would answer, but because the silence was worse than anything else. I thought I would go mad if I stopped trying to reach someone, anyone. Felt tears running down her face. She did not try to stop them. You have been crying for help for 847 years, and no one came. Until you. Until me. The dragon studied her. Its eye was so large that she could see her own reflection in it, a tiny figure standing in a sea of darkness. Why do you weep for me, human? I could destroy your entire species with a thought. I am the monster that civilizations tell their children about to make them behave. I am the end of stars, the silence that swallows, the forbidden one. Wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Maybe you could destroy us, but you have not. In 11,000 years of suffering, you have never once lashed out at the innocent. Every time someone came to kill you, you defended yourself. Every time someone tried to enslave you, you refused. But you never went looking for revenge. You never tried to hurt anyone who did not hurt you first. The chains would not let me. Would you have, if the chains were gone, would you have burned the galaxy? The dragon was silent. I do not think you would have, continued. I think the architects were wrong. I think their prophecies were wrong. I think they chained a good person because they were afraid of what good people can become when they are pushed too far. You do not know me, little human. You do not know what I am capable of. No, but I know what you are not capable of. You are not capable of cruelty without reason. You are not capable of hatred without cause. You have had 11,000 years to become the monster they feared, and you are still here, still hopping, still sending your cry into the darkness. That tells me everything I need to know. The dragon said nothing. But somewhere, deep inside that mountain of scales and ancient fire, something began to change. For 1,000 years no one dared approach, until a human touched the dragon's chains. Part 4. The Hand That Chose to Touch. The Galactic Concord had been watching. Deep in the heart of civilized space, alarm systems began screaming. Sensors that had been dormant for centuries suddenly came to life. Ancient protocols, written by species that no longer existed, activated themselves and began sending urgent messages to every government, every military, every religious order in the known galaxy. Someone had entered the forbidden zone. Someone was talking to the dragon. The response was immediate. Within hours, a fleet was assembled. 12 warships from the Empire, 8 battle cruisers from the Collective, 15 destroyers from the Alliance, and at the center of the fleet, the massive dreadnought of the Galactic Concord itself, a ship so large it had its own gravity. Admiral stood on the bridge of the dreadnought and stared at He was old his bronze skin marked with the scars of 100 battles. He had fought pirates and rebels and alien monsters. He had never felt fear. Until now. The human must be eliminated, he said. His voice was calm, but his 4 hands were clenched tight. She is tampering with forces beyond her understanding. If she releases the dragon, we are all dead. Sir, our laws require a trial before execution, one of his officers said nervously. The laws do not apply here. This is a matter of galactic survival. We will sanitize the area. The human, the dragon, the entire planet if necessary. We cannot take any risks. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed. They would reach 7 in less than 6 hours. On the planet below, had no idea what was coming. She was still talking to the dragon, still learning its story, when her communicator suddenly burst to life. Commander's voice was filled with panic. You need to return to the ship immediately. A fleet is approaching. They are going to bomb the crater. What? Who? Everyone, the entire Galactic Concord. They detected your presence. They think you are trying to release the dragon. Commander, please, you have to leave, now. Looked up at the dragon's face. It was watching her with that same ancient, tired expression. Did you hear that? She asked. I heard. They are coming to kill both of us. I know. Are you scared? The dragon made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter. I have not been scared in a very long time, little human. I have been alone. I have been in pain. I have been angry and sad and hopeless, but not scared. There is nothing left that frightens me. Stood up, she looked at the chains that wrapped around the dragon's body, glowing with their sickly purple light. Can I touch them? Why would you want to? Because I want to try something. The dragon studied her for a long moment. The chains are not simple metal, little human. They are made from the screams of dying civilizations. They are made from the fears of 1 trillion souls. If you touch them, they will show you every horror that has ever existed. They will try to break your mind. I understand. You will suffer. I know. Why would you do this for me? We met only hours ago. I am nothing to you. Smiled. It was a sad smile, but also a brave one. Because someone should have done this 11,000 years ago. Because no one deserves to be abandoned. Because I met a woman named who died trying to help you, and I am not going to let her sacrifice be meaningless. She walked toward the nearest chain. Far above, her crew was fighting, had taken command of the defiant Curiosity and was trying to slow down the approaching fleet. It was hopeless. Their little exploration ship had no weapons, no armor, no chance against the combined might of the Galactic Concord. But they fought anyway. We have to buy her more time, said. His voice was steady, even though his hands were shaking. All of you, listen to me. I know you are scared. I am scared too. But our commander is down there trying to do something that no one has ever done. She is trying to show compassion to a creature that the entire galaxy has forgotten. The least we can do is give her a chance. Dr. Vex wrapped her tentacles around her console. What can we do? We have no weapons. We have our ship. We can put ourselves between the fleet and the planet. We can force them to go around us. They will destroy us. Yes, they probably will. Looked around at his crew, at their frightened faces and trembling hands. But some things are worth dying for. I never believed that before. I was always too scared to take risks, but Commander showed me something. She showed me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act even when you are terrified. The crew was silent. Then one by one, they nodded. Set course for the approaching fleet, Pilot said. His feathers were still white with fear, but his voice was firm. Maximum speed. On the surface of 7, reached out and touched the chain. The pain was immediate. It was like grabbing a star with her bare hands. It was like having needles pushed into every nerve in her body. It was like drowning and burning and freezing all at the same time. But that was just the physical pain. The mental pain was worse. The chains showed her visions. They showed her Earth being consumed by fire. They showed her family dying, screaming, reaching out for her as the flames took them. They showed her every nightmare she had ever had, every fear she had ever felt, every moment of doubt and despair and hopelessness that had ever touched her heart. She held on. Why? The dragon's voice was different now. It was cracked, broken, filled with something that might have been tears. Why do you suffer for me? Could not speak. The pain was too great, but she forced the words out anyway, forced them through clenched teeth and bleeding lips. Because someone should have. The chains pulsed. They tried to throw her off. They tried to make her let go. They whispered that she was nothing, that she was weak, that she could never break them, that she should just give up and die like all the others. She held on. Her hands were blistering. Her skin was peeling away. Her blood was dripping onto the ancient metal, hissing and evaporating in the cold fire. She held on. And somewhere deep inside the chains, something began to change. The chains had been designed to resist everything. Weapons, magic, prayer, force of will. They had been designed to contain the most powerful being in the galaxy, to hold it forever, to never break no matter what. But they had not been designed to resist compassion. They had not been designed for someone who suffered not because they wanted something, not because they were trying to gain power or glory or knowledge, but simply because they did not want another person to be alone. A crack appeared in the metal. The dragon stared in disbelief. "That is not possible," it whispered. "That is not possible." But it was. The crack was spreading, running along the chain like a fracture in ice. Purple light began leaking out, escaping into the air. Far above, the Galactic Concord's fleet dropped out of faster-than-light speed. They saw the crack. They saw what was happening, and they were terrified. "Fire everything," Admiral ordered. "Fire everything now." Weapons that could destroy planets began charging. The fleet prepared to unleash enough firepower to turn the entire planet to glass. On the surface, felt her strength failing. Her vision was going dark. Her heart was slowing down. But she held on. Because some things are worth dying for. For 1,000 years no one dared approach, until a human touched the dragon's chains. Part 5. The dragon rises, the human stands. The chains shattered. It happened all at once, like a dam breaking. 11,000 years of imprisonment ended in a single moment. The purple light exploded outward, washing over the crater, over the planet, over the entire system. Ships that were charging their weapons suddenly found their systems failing. Crews that were preparing to fire suddenly found themselves frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe. And in the crater, the dragon rose. Lay on the ground, her hands burned to the bone, her body broken by the force of what she had done. She could barely see. She could barely breathe. But she looked up anyway, because she wanted to witness what no living being had seen in 11,000 years. Spread his wings. They were vast beyond imagining, each one larger than the greatest ships in the fleet above. They had been crushed and folded pressed tight against his body by chains that never loosened. Now they stretched out, blocking the stars, covering half the sky with darkness that moved. The dragon rose into the air. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was the most magnificent thing had ever seen. On the bridge of the dreadnought, Admiral fell to his knees. The prophecies of his people flashed through his mind. The end of stars had risen. The silence that swallows was free. Everything was over. "Fire," he whispered. "Someone fire, please." No one could move. The dragon looked at the fleet. It was just a glance, just a single sweep of those ancient eyes across the tiny ships that had come to destroy it. It could kill them all. It could burn through their hulls with a thought, could tear their atoms apart with a whisper, could end every life in the fleet before any of them could scream. The galaxy held its breath, turned away. Instead of attacking the fleet, instead of beginning the destruction of all civilization, the dragon descended. It flew back down to the crater, back to the broken figure lying in the ash. Little human. Tried to speak. She could not. Her throat was raw from screaming, her lungs were filling with fluid, her heart was barely beating. "You freed me." She managed a small nod. "You suffered for me. You broke your body against my chains. You gave everything you had for a creature you did not know, a creature that everyone told you was a monster." Another small nod. The dragon lowered its massive head until its eye was level with its face. It was so close that she could see herself reflected in its pupil, a tiny broken thing lying in the ruins of an ancient prison. "In 11,000 years, no one has ever shown me kindness. Not the architects who created me, not the civilizations I protected, not the pilgrims who came to worship me or the warriors who came to slay me. You are the first, the only one." A single tear fell from the dragon's eye. It landed on its chest, warm and golden, and where it touched her, her wounds began to heal. "I am going to do something I have never done before," said. "I am going to give a gift freely, with no expectation of return. I am going to save your life, little human. And then I am going to do something else. something I never thought I would do again. Felt strength flowing back into her body. Her hands were healing, her lungs were clearing, her heart was beating strong and steady. "What are you going to do?" she managed to whisper. "I am going to hope." The dragon rose again, but this time it did not fly toward the fleet. It flew upward past the ships, past the atmosphere, until it hung in the void of space like a new constellation. Every sensor in the galaxy was locked on it. Every eye was watching. Every heart was pounding with terror. Spoke, and his voice echoed across every frequency, in every language, reaching every corner of the known universe. "Hear me, children of the stars. I am the last of my kind. I was chained by your ancestors for a crime I never committed, punished for a future that never came to pass. For 11,000 years I have waited in darkness, forgotten by the universe I once protected." The fleet drifted, powerless. No one dared move. "I could destroy you all. I could burn your worlds and shatter your empires and end everything you have built. Your prophecies say I will. Your fears say I must. But your prophecies were written by beings who never understood me, and your fears are chains of your own making." The dragon turned in space, its wings catching the light of distant stars. "Today, a human did something that no other species has ever done. She came to my prison not with weapons or prayers or demands. She came with compassion. She listened to my story. She wept for my suffering. And when it came time to act, she put her hands on my chains and broke them with nothing but her heart." Far below, on the surface of Seven, stood up. Her crew had landed beside her, the defiant Curiosity battered but intact, was staring at the sky with tears running down his bronze face. "Humanity has earned something today that no empire could ever conquer. Not my fear, not my obedience, not my power. They have earned my friendship, and I give it freely because for the first time in 11,000 years I am not alone." The dragon looked down at the planet, at the tiny human standing in the crater that had been his prison. "Go, little ones. Tell your masters, tell your peoples, tell everyone who has ever feared the darkness. The chains are broken, the dragon is free, and the galaxy has nothing to fear from me because a single human woman reminded me that kindness still exists in this cold and ancient universe." There was a long silence. Then slowly the fleet began to move. They did not attack. They did not flee. They simply drifted backward, weapons powering down, shields lowering. One by one, the ships of the Galactic Conquered turned and flew away. Descended one final time. He landed beside, careful not to crush her or her crew beneath his massive form. "What will you do now?" asked. "I do not know. For 11,000 years my purpose was to suffer. Now I must find a new purpose." The dragon looked at her with something that might have been affection. "Perhaps I will stay with you for a while, watch over your species, learn what it means to have a friend." Smiled. She was exhausted, covered in ash and blood and the remnants of broken chains, but she smiled. "I would like that. It will be strange. I have never had a friend before." "Neither have I really, at least not like this." Reached up and touched the dragon's scales. They were warm, warmer than she had expected. "But I think we can figure it out together." The dragon made that sound again, the one that might have been laughter, but this time was certain it was not pain. It was joy. In the years that followed, humanity's reputation changed. They were not the strongest species, nor the oldest, but they were the ones who had touched the dragon's chains. They were the ones who had looked at the galaxy's greatest terror and seen not a monster but a person in need. And the last dragon, the end of stars, the silence that swallows, became humanity's guardian, not because they demanded it, not because they earned it through conquest, but because one woman had sat down in the ash, offered tea, and listened. The galaxy had forgotten that even gods can be lonely. Humanity reminded them.